Okay guys, so we are back, and again we are looking at the Google visualizations, how we're going to load Google visualizations here and get ourselves a bar chart going with our Guardian JSON data. So I have my main HTML file here. You can see that I have loaded my three libraries, and my Google visualization library, my jQuery library, and then of course my own scripts. And I've created a div on the page that doesn't have any attributes, right? It doesn't have any style yet, as you can see, but I've just gone ahead and given it an ID so that I have someplace to put my chart once I've got it. And my gchart scripts file, right, doesn't have a lot going on yet. All I did was use it to confirm that my page was loading properly, which I saw here. So having done that, we want to kind of dive into the Google visualization part. And the important thing about this is that we have this this Google load feature happening. And basically what it is that the same way that we load jQuery, the same way that we load our JSON, right? And we sort of talked in class about how when we need that JSON, right, we place a telephone call and we say, hey, I'd really like to get this data. And then we're kind of on hold and we don't know exactly when that data is going to come back. It's a not dissimilar thing with this visualization library. So even though we have this Load.js API thing, this Google JS API thing, right, all that does is kind of like get it ready, or give us the ability to then actually ask for these specific packages. The one that we're looking at is called core chart, but there's core chart, bar chart, pie chart, all kinds of different charts, right, that correspond to the many different kinds of charts that are available here, right? So the core chart, I believe, encompasses a handful of different sort of common chart types. But this is the statement that we're looking at, right? So our trick is that we want to be able to first make sure that our chart library is available, right? So we're going to place that telephone call. We're going to call up and say, hey, I'd like to get this core chart library, right? That's what we're seeing here. I'd like to get this core chart library. And when you're done with that, I'd like you to load some data, right? That's where we're going to place the call for the JSON data. And when that JSON data comes back, we know we have everything we need to be able to actually build this chart with data and put it on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and take this statement. Again, I'm on this on this bar chart API page that's linked to from your syllabus, and I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, what I really want is once the document is loaded, I'm going to say, oops, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Copy and paste. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, let's go ahead and load Google Visualization core chart package, right? So I'm going to actually change the name of this now to LoadingGViz package. Right? And again, I like to copy and paste this. Again, the reason why we ask you guys to change variable names and function names is so that you get practice at it, but also so you can see how naming these things in a sort of evocative way, right, in a descriptive way, is actually going to really help you when you write your code, right? So it's pretty clear what the function loadgviz package probably does. And of course, as the author of this document, of this script, right, I can be like, oh, right, then I do that, right? So I strongly encourage you guys to, use your variable and function names descriptively so that it'll help you track, along with your comments, help you track what is going on in your code. So they use a particular method here, which is that they sort of do this Google load and then they set on load callback, which doesn't work for us for a number of reasons, and we can talk about them in class if you guys are curious. But what I want to do, one thing is that it's verbose, right? I have this whole extra line of code, which I don't actually need. And so I kind of went poking around to see what I could find out about other ways to load this. And you see that they have here referencing our this script tag that we have in our HTML page, and they've got a whole bunch of different ways that you can do it. But the one that's important to me is this one. And again, what we're seeing it with the Google Maps library. We're not loading the Google Maps library, obviously, but we could be. And so what I want to do is I'm going to say, okay, yeah, you know what I want to do? I want to specify a callback function, right? So now that our metaphor actually kind of makes a bit more sense, right? I want to have that callback function happen right in this declaration here. Now, it's a little bit hard to tell, and this is something you guys will get practice at as we work more with Google visualizations. But one of the things that they do, we can see that this is, this is a JSON object. And we know because maps loaded isn't in quotation marks that it has to be declared somewhere else, right, which is our function maps loaded up here. So we see that these two match, and of course we have the quotation marks here. So this is just a JSON object, right? Again and again we see these structures reappear. And and callback is a particular, is sort of a special handler that does exactly that, right? It lets you know, it gives you a call back. It lets you know when customer service picked up the line and said, here's the stuff you were asking for. Here's the information you wanted. But this is wrapped in curly braces. And sometimes it's not exactly obvious, but what they tend to do is use those curly braces, that single JSON object, for all of the so-called optional parameters. So these are things that we don't absolutely have to include in this Google load call, but we can if we want to. And so here they're seeing callback. You see that we actually have one of these optional parameters already, which is this packages element. So I'm going to go ahead and add this, and in fact, the syntax on that packages one is a little unusual, but I'm going to go ahead and add this callback parameter. And now, obviously, I don't want to call my callback maps loaded. I want to call it, let's say, gviz loaded, right? Okay, so then of course I need that function gviz loaded, right? Now we see there's been some question about, okay, so when do we have something in parentheses here and when do we not? And largely it's going to be up to the person who authored the script. So we know by looking at this example that actually this callback function, right, it doesn't appear to send anything back, right? It doesn't pass specific data. It is passing data in the background. What it tends to do is actually attach it to this so-called Google object that unfortunately for us is kind of invisible in the background. It would be nice if it was a little bit more front and center what's going on, but I guess that's what we get when we work with Google sometimes. But mostly we want to say, hey, look, let's make sure that we got this thing loaded. So let's see how we do here. Now, if all has gone well, right, I should now see two things happen. I should see this console log for hi there, right, which means that I've gotten here. And this Google load thing should eventually, right, hit gviz loaded, and I should see a console log of hi again. And this will tell us that both our document is ready and that our Google visualization core charts packages has been loaded. So we're going to come back to our Google Chrome, right? And you notice that I'm still local here, right? I haven't actually had to upload anything yet. Oh, darn. Wait. Still working. Sending request. Woo. See, now this is actually a really good demonstration. You guys saw how long that took. That actually took a couple of seconds. So that happens sometimes, and it's something that, again, this is sort of why we're really rigorous about chaining these requests, right, and making sure that we don't ask for the next thing until we're sure we've gotten the first one back. Because even though in some of your assignments with the JSON there didn't seem to be much of a lag, that was a pretty distinct lag, right? We can imagine that if we had just started looking for our JSON right away, we might have gotten our JSON back, but the charts package wouldn't have been there, and then we would have been sunk. So that, I don't know why that happened, but good case in point. So now, when we get to that hi again, we know that our Google, and feel free, by the way, for your console logs to be more articulate than mine. So now we've got this hi again. So now we know that the Google chart package is loaded, right? That's good. Time to load some data, right? And so just for the sake of brevity, right, I'm gonna just add my, oops, I should probably copy that actually, right? Otherwise I'd lose it from my other one. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that Guardian Gun Laws JSON, and what do we do now? Of course, we know we do our get request, right? So I'm going to do my get, right? It's going to be my document name here, which is guardiangunlaws.json, gunlaws.json, right? I have to specify my it's my event handler or our callback, right? These are similar. You should feel free to use whichever term you like. They're basically the same. They imply the same activity. same type of activity. So I'm going to say draw chart, right? Like, let's get going on this. And of course, I'm expecting JSON. Okay, so now of course we know we get to the point that we need to make sure that we are going to be on the server. So I'm going to say draw chart and give it a parameter of JSON data, and again, start in the happy place, make sure that we've got things working okay first. We're going to do our console log. We know at this point we need to make sure that we are uploaded to our server. So I'm going to go ahead and drag all of my material up there. Okay, and also using, so I've used this navigation. Now I have my htaccess file in there. I can go to gcharts main and check my console, and there we go. Okay, so again, these processes, we're going to do them over and over and over again. They're going to be like the back of your hand in a couple of weeks. And by the way, that's not trivial. Okay, so now I know I have my JSON data, right? And we are practiced at creating our for loops for accessing the individual elements of that JSON data. And so what we want to do is we want to get that data together and actually build a chart with it. And in order to do that, we need to go to the API documentation. So we see one option for how to do this in this example, right? Now, again, there's a challenge here because their data is written in line, it's in an array, not a JSON object, right? Which isn't what we have. And so, we've kind of gone through all this effort to, load our data dynamically because it's big and all this other stuff, right? So what are we going to do? How do we get this into a format that's workable? And so one thing that you guys are going to get a lot of experience at in the next couple of weeks, we want you to get a lot of practice at, is reading documentation, okay? This is it is a little bit like reading the dictionary, right? That jQuery documentation is like reading the dictionary. The API reference, right? So API, from your reading, you should know, stands for application, wait, now I don't even remember what it is. Interface, application, platform interface, now I've forgotten. Programming interface, wow, it's early. Okay, and so what we're gonna look for is when you come to this page, which the link will be added, right, is we're gonna look for this, or actually I may give you a direct link, is a sorted static method. So what we're at is we're at the document reference for data table, which is part of the Google visualization API. So data table is a type of object, right, that the code, right, so again we have this idea of there's a library at Google that does a whole bunch of work for us in the background and lets us use this concept of a data table. You can think of a data table like a spreadsheet. It's very, very similar in its sort of execution. In fact, data table lets us pull data from a spreadsheet optionally. It's going to give us a lot of power and a lot of flexibility. But again, you can think of this as a library where Google has gone and written a bunch of code that now we get to use without really having to worry too much about what's happening in the background, as long as we follow the rules for doing it that have been set forth. And so this assorted methods thing, what this gives us is an example of various ways to get data into our data table. So we're going to go through these one by one in the next segment and make our choice, but it just to give you guys an overview of the fact that there are many different ways that we can take the data that we have, convert it into the appropriate format that we can then pass it to the charts part of the Google visualization library and have it actually render out a chart for us.